Welcome to the Pushkin State Museum of Fine Arts in Moscow. Opened in 1912 and named for Tsar Alexander III, the museum's tumultuous history traces that of Russia in the last century. After the revolution, Soviet authorities renamed the museum for a different Alexander, Pushkin, poet, playwright, and literary hero. The museum's 700,000 objects give us a singular portrait of cultures from around the world, as seen by the generations of Russian curators who assembled the collection. One of those cultures is that of the Jews, and this is the focus of our visit. But we won't be looking at Jewish culture in Russia. Instead, we'll be looking at the museum's collection from Egypt, and from an era when Jews lived and thrived there, although they weren't supposed to be there at all. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Sukkot, about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children. And a mixed multitude went up with them, and large droves of livestock, both flocks and herds. The book of Exodus, known in Hebrew as Shmot, tells the story of the central event in Jewish history, the journey of Hebrew slaves out of Egypt to freedom in the land of Israel. The date of the Exodus is sometimes placed around 1470 BCE, sometimes 2 or 3 centuries later. The truth is, historians don't know when it happened or if it really happened at all. But Jewish tradition has no doubt that it did, and the story is told every year at Passover. For millennia, Jews have defined themselves as a people who left Egypt. So why do they keep popping up there? Petechor, the son of Espemet. Espemet, the son of Peteize. Eschnum, the son of Espetenzene. These names are Egyptian, but here they're written not in hieroglyphics, but in Aramaic, a Semitic language closely related to Hebrew. If you were a clerk or scribe in ancient Egypt and you needed to write down a record of money or of people, you probably wouldn't have used papyrus. That was expensive and took time and skill to produce. Instead, you'd likely have used a pottery sherd, part of a broken pot or jug. Sherds were cheap, abundant, and durable, and these documents are known as ostraca. Once you had your writing surface, you'd take a pen made from a reed with a flat tip. You'd dip the pen in ink made from soot, the same ingredient that was used to manufacture mascara. For a thick line, you'd use the flat end of the pen, while a thin line meant using the sharp edge. When we find ostraca from ancient Egypt, they're usually records related to household maintenance or economic or legal affairs. Less frequently, we find prayers or incantations. Some Egyptian inscriptions don't use hieroglyphics, the thousands of symbols that made up Egyptian script. Instead, we find the letters of a phonetic alphabet, the roots of our own system of writing. Sometimes we even find the alphabet listed in order as a beginning scribe practiced writing letters. Around the 5th century BCE, Egypt was ruled not by its own pharaohs but by the Persian Empire. The imperial bureaucracy used Aramaic, so many Egyptian ostraca around this time come from scribes who knew both traditional Egyptian hieroglyphics and the Aramaic alphabet. This sherd from the 5th century BCE comes from Elephantine Island on the Nile River in southern Egypt. The island was home to a Persian military outpost, but the soldiers here weren't Persian. They were Jewish fighters who served the empire and who lived here with their families for generations. This would have been perhaps 1,000 years after the Exodus is said to have happened. The text is a list of 13 men, each appearing with his own name and that of his father. One side has 4 names and the other has 9. At the bottom of each, the scribe has noted the total number of entries. Sherds were used to compile lists of workers and soldiers, to record food distribution, military drafts, and population tallies. We don't know who these 13 people were or what they had in common, but we can learn something from their names. Many Egyptian names included the name of a god, like the great pharaoh Ra-Meses or Ramses, which means born of the god Ra. Here, for example, we have the name Eschnum. Chnum is the name of a ram deity. We also see the name Petechor, where Hor or Horus refers to another Egyptian god. All of the names are Egyptian, except for one, Betel Nuri. Betel was a god, but not one from Egypt. He was worshipped in the Levant by people of Semitic origins. Betel Nuri is a name with Aramaic roots, and shows that the people here and their gods were diverse. Another shard at the Pushkin Museum contains a different list from the same island and gives us even more insight into the heterogeneous human landscape of this little community in the Nile. One name is Nabudala. Nabu is the name of a god from Mesopotamia. The same god appears in the name of the famous Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. Most of the names on this list have both Aramaic and Egyptian elements. Two names, that of a son and father, are of Persian origin, Pascageres, son of Vanya. Two of the names are Hebrew, Shilem and Anania. These were almost certainly Jews. And the people with Egyptian or Aramaic names might have been Jewish as well. We don't know. The Jews of Elephantine Island were foreigners and a small minority in Egypt. They might have willingly adopted non-Jewish names as Jews have done throughout history, or they might have been forcibly assimilated. Some papyrus documents mention Jews whose parents had Egyptian names. The boundaries among people seem to have been fluid. Jewish men married Egyptian women, for example, and married their daughters off to men from Egypt or from elsewhere in the Persian Empire. The children born into these mixed families were given names in different languages. The imperial bureaucrats would duly write these names down so the residents could be taxed, drafted into the army, or fed. And then they left these records of a complex and fascinating place for us to find and ponder 2,500 years later.